Have you ever wanted a podcast that did it all? Sports, politics, world events. Well, you have come to the right place, because you are listening to C&C Talks.
Hello, I'm Colin.
And I'm Charlie.
And welcome to the C&C Talks podcast. This is episode 10 of season 2.
And just a reminder, as we do every week, we release every Tuesday, and we talk about politics, world events, and sports. It is currently Monday, March 13th, 2023, at about 1 p.m. Pacific time.
And coming up on this episode, we're going to talk about the anniversary of the COVID pandemic, 3-year anniversary now, the Silicon Valley Bank collapse, the new Georgia law targeting district attorneys, March Madness, the World Baseball Classic, and a whole lot more. Packed show this week, Charlie.
Yep, and let's get started. It is the 3-year anniversary of the COVID pandemic. Colin, what do you remember about when the world shut down initially?
Yeah, so the question, I think I vividly remember, I think the first mark was when the NBA shut down their season, which is interesting because school, for me at least, had already closed. They had already shut down my school a couple days earlier, and so we were just getting started with online stuff. And actually, on March 11th, 2020, I had a late-night flight down to Arizona to watch spring training. And my family was kind of deciding, should we go? Is this even worth doing at this point? And we were kind of like, yes. And then we saw the news that the NBA had shut down their season, and we were like, yeah, no, this is actually going to be really bad. There's no point in going. All the sports are going to shut down. And let's also remember, Charlie, it didn't feel bad for a while because there was so few testing resources, right? We had a lot more cases than we thought because our country was just so far behind on testing. And then also, of course, we're in Seattle. Seattle was one of the first regions that was really hit hard. It was like where the first couple cases were reported and likely where the first big outbreak started in the United States.
And, I went to a friend's house, and I didn't really think it was that bad. I remember thinking, okay, school's going to be closed for a few weeks, we'll be good, and then we'll go back. And it was really about, maybe a couple weeks later when I really started to realize this is going to get bad, and this isn't going to get better anytime soon. And then, really over the summer, I really began to realize this is going to last a really long time.
Well, you bring up an interesting point, though, which is that you probably remember when everything was shutting down, everyone was just like, it's going to be a 2-week thing, then we're all going to be back to work, right? And as those 2 weeks went on, it began to seem a lot harder to see how it was even possible that it would last 2 weeks, because if we all just went back to work and school and all the rest, it would still be just a mass outbreak. And the goal, of course, at that point was just flattening the curve, and really the only way that was possible was to wait it out for the long haul.
And I think the key there is flattening it horizontally.
Yeah, exactly. And thank goodness, though, that we were able to get out a safe and effective vaccine as quickly as possible. And it really was, in some ways, a medical miracle that we were able to get a vaccine out that quickly. And that is what has allowed us to return to our mostly normal lives at this point.
So that brings up the question then, where are we now in this pandemic?
I don't know, it's hard because obviously COVID is still a very real thing. People are dying from it, but we have kind of learned to live with it like the flu in a lot of ways, and that is good. That's the goal. Obviously it's still really important, just like with the flu, to continue to get vaccinated, get your booster shots every year, however long, whenever the FDA, CDC recommends that you get that. Charlie? Your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree on that. It's definitely important to get vaccinated and stay up to date with your boosters if it is recommended by the proper authorities. However, we do want to acknowledge that nearly 7 million people worldwide have died of COVID.
Yeah, and that's just a staggering number.
It is. Hopefully something like this will not happen again.
Yeah, all right, let's move on to... I feel like we're always talking about bad news on this show, but there really is a lot of bad news in this world, Charlie.
There is, with the collapse of Silicon Valley Bank. Can we get some more on exactly what happened, Colin?
Yeah, so, at least to me, it's slightly unclear. As far as I can tell, the bank just... There was a bank rush, basically. The FDIC had to take it over, basically.
So what does Silicon Valley Bank do exactly?
They are one of the biggest banks in the nation.
I believe the 16th largest.
Something like that.
Or
And
they were the 16th
they were
largest.
the 16th largest. Of course, that collapsed. The second biggest bank collapse in U.S. history. There were $200 billion in that bank. Also, I believe I saw the number that less than 3% of the accounts in that bank had a balance of less than $250,000. And of course, the FDIC only insures up to $250,000. Charlie, what else do you know about this situation?
Well, this is clearly really bad. Of course, you don't want your banks collapsing, but that has really obviously been reflected in the stock market with several days of downward trending. But this is just really a big concern because we do not need another 2008 right now.
No, and do you think that that's possible? And what can the Biden administration do about it? What can Congress do about it to prevent another type of recession? What maybe are they already doing?
I don't really know too much about how to prevent things like this, but I do trust the current administration, and I do hope that they can figure out a solution to this. Because, again, as I said, in the middle of possible collapse in terms of our economy with inflation pretty high still, it is still a really big concern.
It would be a disaster. And bank rush is just not good, to say the very least.
Speaking of not good...
Tucker Carlson. We've come to him again, haven't we?
Yet again, Tucker Carlson has showed several clips from January 6th on his show. If you remember, he was given these clips by Kevin McCarthy, I believe, last week.
A couple weeks ago, but he first started showing them last week. And it's really disturbing, at least in my opinion, that he was not that he was able to get access to these clips, but that he alone was able to get access to these clips. That's not really free press. That is like that's giving away what basically classified information to certain people to help improve your story.
Yeah, and he only used clips that portrayed it as peaceful, and he omitted those clips that obviously showed that this was a violent affair.
I mean, we all watched it on live TV in horror.
We did, and of course, as we mentioned, he got these tapes from Kevin McCarthy. McCarthy possibly illegally turned them over to Carlson and no one else, which I believe we talked about earlier, as well as the fact that Carlson has admitted to lying to his viewers. Could we get a little bit more on that?
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest stories in the news recently has been the Fox News, this lawsuit that they're facing from Dominion Voting Systems for $1.6 billion. Lots of text messages have been uncovered from Fox News anchors, basically showed that they did not believe what they were telling their viewers about the potential election fraud, of which, of course, there was none, but they continued to promote it for ratings, basically. It's unfair even to call this a news network because they've admitted to lying about the news. I mean, that's not news. That's propaganda. They're also potentially facing a lawsuit from Smartmatic, which there's rumors that Smartmatic may file a lawsuit for well over $2 billion, Charlie. So Fox News could be in a lot of trouble.
As well as the fact, continuing on Tucker Carlson, the fact that Fox's lawyers have admitted in court that he is not to be taken seriously.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know what to say to
See,
that.
you know you've messed up when the lawyers from the company you work at are telling everyone on your news show that you should not be taken seriously.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of reminds me of when Angel Hernandez filed that lawsuit against the MLB for discriminating against umpires of Cuban descent, and they basically said, no, it's just because you're a bad umpire.
We need to move on. We have a new district attorney law from Georgia. Can we get a little bit more on exactly what that is?
Yeah, so there's this really concerning law in Georgia that it looks like it's going to pass, has not cleared the final stages of passing yet, but looks like it's passed the Georgia State House. It's well on its way to passing the Georgia State Senate, and Governor Brian Kemp has said that he will sign it into law should it get to his desk. Now, what is this potential law? It would basically give the governor the power to appoint a panel to oversee district attorneys across the state who are, of course, elected in Georgia, and if they want to, basically remove the district attorneys, from office. So this is basically the Republican Party trying to undermine the independent judiciary in Georgia, where they are, of course, under significant investigation, both Donald Trump for trying to illegally overturn the election in Georgia, and several other Republicans in the state government there for trying to help him do that. So really, really concerning signs of them basically trying to remove the prosecutors to stop them from getting in legal trouble.
Yep, and we have a new law as well from Tennessee, which is very anti-transgender. They have passed a law banning drag, and this is some hypocrisy yet again from the top state officials. Governor Bill Lee had a video emerge of him dressing in drag when he was in high school, and a photo of a male nude was liked and commented on by Lieutenant Governor Randy McNally.
Yeah, not just one. It's been a constant thing on Instagram. He's been liking and commenting on these posts. So, the hypocrisy at its finest level.
Indeed.
Rules for thee, but not for me. Some other news about Republicans. Lauren Boebert, who we know is, of course, extremely anti-abortion, anti any kind of contraception, anti-sexual education, just found out that she's going to be a grandmother. Now, you generally want to say congratulations to someone when they become a grandmother, but Charlie, there's a bit of an age concern here.
Boebert is 36.
Jeez. Yeah. So, if you're wondering how they got there, Boebert, when she was 17, got pregnant to someone in his 20s.
Yikes.
And more than that, this person that she got married to, who she's still married to today, by the way, she got married after they were pregnant, obviously, because she was 17 when she got pregnant. But this person has since exposed himself to minors at a bowling alley, been arrested for that, and also been arrested for domestic violence against Lauren Boebert. They also had, that couple had their third kid in the front seat of a pickup truck. We genuinely were sitting and recording this. Everyone on our set right now cannot stop laughing about this because it's genuinely funny. Also sad, but funny. But again, super anti-sex ed. Now her 17-year-old son, the one that she conceived at 17 years old, he has impregnated a 15-year-old. Or someone who's currently 15, was possibly 14 at the time.
I'm starting to see a pattern here.
Yeah, it's not a good pattern either.
If this trend continues, this is going to look even worse.
If this trend continues, imagine that, Lauren Boebert is she...
Three great-grandmothers down by the time she's 70.
No, she meets her, great-great-great-great-grandchild or something.
At this rate, it might be possible.
It might be, it's a family that doesn't know how to parent, obviously, and it makes sense. They keep having to drop out of college because they have kids. So, yeah, no, not a good look. Other Republican personal news, it's about Kellyanne and George Conway, Charlie, and what has got to be a surprise to absolutely nobody.
I'll let you take this one.
All right, yeah, they're divorcing. And the only real question that I have, Charlie, they've been married for 20 years. How did this not happen sooner?
I have no idea.
They are so different from each other. George Conway, obviously super anti-Trump, still definitely a Republican, but super anti-Trump, co-founder of the Lincoln Project, which is, of course, a group of Republican strategists who are basically leading the charge to dismantle the Republican Party as it currently stands. And Kellyanne Conway, obviously extremely pro-Trump, was Trump's 2016 campaign manager, a senior official in his administration for almost all of his administration, one of the few who didn't get fired, shockingly, still an advisor to Trump to this day. We wish them, I don't know whether I should say the best of luck in their next endeavor. I don't know.
I don't know either.
Let's move on to some protests happening in Georgia, and that is Georgia, the country, Charlie.
Yeah, Georgia has been swept with a huge amount of protests. Of course, that country has been very unstable ever since the Russian invasion in 2008, and there are, of course, some concerns with the breakaway regions of Abkhazia and South Ossetia as well, which are both claimed but essentially as Russian puppets by the Russians, and they have been set up ever since 2008. So even more instability now for this republic in the Caucasus Mountains, and this is yet again a continuing story that we will continue to look into.
Yeah, so is this something that you've maybe talked about on an after hours show, or might do an after hours about in the future?
I will be doing an after hours about that entire region over the last few years, the conflicts between Azerbaijan and Armenia, as well as the conflicts between Russia and Georgia, and that region's general instability.
Yeah, so make sure to look out for that coming up probably in the next couple of weeks here on the C&C Talks YouTube channel. First, we have a couple announcements before we get into the second half of our show today. We've got a live stream coming up this week, Charlie. Tell us about that.
It'll be on Wednesday, March 15th, so 2 days from when this episode comes out.
One day.
If you include the Tuesday. On 7 p.m. Pacific time, exclusively on YouTube, and we'll be discussing how we filled out our March Madness brackets, both men and women's. And our bloopers will come out at the end of the month at 12 p.m. Pacific time on March 31st, exclusively on YouTube, and this will be the first 3 months of the year. You're listening to the C&C Talks podcast. Thank you for listening.
We do have a lot of bloopers this month, or in the last 3 months, Charlie.
Yes, we do. And now let's move on to sports. And it's time for March Madness.
It is time for March Madness. We mentioned that live stream that we're going to be doing on Wednesday, so we won't go too deep into the bracket today.
We'll do that
we
during
will
the live
talk
stream.
A little bit, though, about these conference tournaments. And at least on the men's side, it was, I don't want to say boring, but there weren't really any bid stealers. Of course, a bid stealer is a team that would normally have not gotten an at-large bid in the conference, who maybe does have another team that would get an at-large bid to make the tournament, which would, of course, kick an at-large team out. So, for example, if, say, in the Pac-12, obviously, Pac-12 getting 4 teams, Arizona State, USC, UCLA, and Arizona. But if, say, Stanford had managed to win the Pac-12 tournament, they're obviously awful this year. But if they had managed to do that, then that would have kicked someone else in the end, that Nevada, out of the tournament. So not really a whole ton of bid stealers, but definitely some interesting results. I believe, that, Charlie, that there was a game in the Western Athletic Conference tournament, the WAC tournament, where this one team, I don't even remember the team. This one team was up 3, just a couple seconds to go. Other team shoots a 3, gets fouled, and hits it. So they get the 4-point play.
And win the game.
Just, kind of a tragedy. But Duke obviously winning the ACC tournament. But
they're a 5th seed.
They are a 5 seed in the NCAA tournament. But are you surprised, Charlie, that they won the ACC tournament? They obviously have a first-year head coach who's done just a terrific job.
Yeah, I am a bit surprised, but I am really excited to see how they do in the tournament, especially because they do have a couple of mismatches coming up, considering that they're not ranked in the top 3.
Yeah, and what about Texas beating Kansas, just absolutely demolishing Kansas in the Big 12 tournament final, their second big winner for Kansas in a short period of time.
Texas just looks really good right now. We'll have to see.
Yeah, they're gonna be a threat heading into the tournament. Kansas, I feel like, though, may have been placed in a bit of a tough region. I mean, in that region, you're going to get a second-round game against Arkansas or Illinois. That's tough. You're probably going to have to face UConn in the Sweet 16, and then probably like Gonzaga or UCLA in the Elite 8. That's a really tough region there for Kansas to get through. I feel like they may have been snubbed a little bit of a higher seed, but if we want to talk about snubs, Charlie, Rutgers missing the tournament.
Oh, that was absolutely ridiculous. They should have made it.
I mean, there is the whole Big Ten thing of always getting eliminated really early in the tournament. So that's something that we're going to see again.
We might. I think the bigger news from this weekend, though, was the Bears trading the number 1 overall pick to the Panthers.
It's a shocking trade. I mean, I'm not ultimately that shocked that the Bears traded it away.
But to the Panthers, a surprise to me.
To the Panthers is somewhat surprising. Also, the haul that they got for that pick.
They got the number 9 overall pick this year.
Yep.
A second round pick this year. The Panthers first rounder in 2024, and a second rounder in 2025, as well as wide receiver DJ Moore.
So, who do you think ended up winning this trade?
Oh, the Bears, absolutely.
Yeah, I'd have to agree.
They can draft a bunch of weapons. They can keep that first rounder for next year if they, for some reason, need a quarterback, and now they finally have someone for Fields to throw to.
Yeah, meanwhile, the Panthers, I have to assume, they're going to use this draft pick on a quarterback. They'll have their choice of C.J. Stroud, Bryce Young, maybe even Will Levis, but that's unlikely. That could be a franchise-changing pick there, I think.
It could. We'll see.
But now you're looking at a situation where a lot of those top picks in the draft, Charlie, gonna end up being quarterbacks. You've got that number 1 pick, that's gonna be a quarterback.
Indy needs one.
The number 2 pick, the Texans almost certainly gonna draft a quarterback. You've got the Cardinals at number 3, who maybe need one, but
I don't think they're gonna get one.
But there are recently rumors that they may also be trading down. So a team that needs a quarterback could hop in there. Colts obviously need a quarterback. So the Colts could end up...
Seattle could draft someone.
Seattle could. I think it's more likely that they're going to go after someone like Will Anderson. But the Colts could be stuck with the 4th best quarterback on the market. That would kind of be insane.
And we all know the Colts with their quarterbacks.
Yeah. Speaking of the Panthers and quarterbacks, though, Sam Darnold has signed with, wait for it, the 49ers. Do you get that move at all? Obviously,
absolutely not.
We'll get to Jimmy Garoppolo, his deal with the Raiders in a minute, but
admittedly, with Trey Lance still questionable and Brock Purdy probably out for a little while, he could start.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like they'll probably both be back in time for the regular season, but how do you feel now about that 49ers quarterback situation, assuming health? Lance, are you going Lance, you're going Purdy, you're somehow going Darnold?
I would go Trey Lance.
You would, and why?
I would. I think he's. I haven't seen enough of him to see how really good he is. So I would start him for the first 2 games of the season. If you get in trouble, I would throw Purdy in there because I just don't know how good Purdy actually is. I don't know if last season was a fluke.
I mean, Purdy genuinely played really, really well.
Admittedly, with the weapons he had, it's pretty easy to play well.
With the weapons he had, it's pretty easy, but still, he played really well. He was definitely better than Garoppolo was for the 49ers.
And that's why he's not there anymore.
Yeah, Garoppolo now signing with the Raiders for 3 years, more than $60 million. What are your thoughts on that deal?
I disagree with it. I think they may have overpaid him a little bit, but I do think it was a good move for them to sign a quarterback. But this does mean they're out of the Aaron Rodgers sweepstakes.
They're out of the Aaron Rodgers sweepstakes. Also, this is what I'm struggling with. Where's the money for defense? Where is it? You need defense.
You don't need money for a defense if you don't have a defense.
But you need to get.
I think
defense.
that's their strategy.
I think that money would be better spent for the I almost called them the Oakland Raiders, for the Las Vegas Raiders, on defense.
Yeah, they should just start Stidham.
Yeah. Speaking of defense, Jalen Ramsey getting traded to the Dolphins. You definitely called, Charlie, earlier this offseason that Ramsey would be traded. Is this where you expected him to go, though?
I did actually. I see what the Dolphins are doing. They're trying to do what the Rams did. They're really building a big team here. If you trust Tua to stay healthy, you got Tyreek Hill. Now you got Jalen Ramsey. They're really building something. They got Bradley Chubb.
Jalen Waddle.
They're building something. If Tua can stay healthy, they're going to be one of those elite teams. I would put them up there with KC. I would put them up there with Cincy. Maybe even Jacksonville. I see huge things going on in Jacksonville. I think the big 4 going in the next season are going to be KC, Cincy, Jacksonville, and Miami.
So you don't even think that the Bills are up there?
The Bills are going backwards.
Bills are going backwards. I mean, that is an interesting take. The question, though, for me with the Dolphins is Tua, though. Not only can he stay healthy, but, I mean, even if he can, is he the right choice? I really liked what I did see out of him when he was healthy this past season. So.
Yeah, he played really well until he got injured, which was not only his fault, but also the fault of nearly the NFL as a whole not really managing his injury very well. But if he can stay healthy, they're going to be a really big threat.
Yeah, let's talk about Aaron Rodgers for a minute. We still think that he's probably going to come back.
To the Jets.
You think that he's going to go to the Jets?
What do you think?
You see, here's the thing. I don't think he's going to go to the Jets. I don't know where he is going to go, but I don't think he's going to go to the Jets, and here's why. The New York media market. Why do we think that he is capable of handling it? He can't handle the Green Bay media market. They have a tiny market.
And actually, thinking about this, if he was going to go to New York, with all the things that they have, he would have said something already.
Yeah.
Thinking about it.
Also, he would be a lot better served in the NFC right now. The AFC is loaded, and ultimately when things start to go south in New York, as they will, then he's going to get the blame. He's not going to be happy about that.
Yeah, so then do you think he'll retire?
I don't think he'll retire, but I could maybe see him going to the NFC South.
To a team like Tampa Bay?
Team like Tampa Bay, something like that, yeah.
He just does a Brady.
He does a Brady, yeah.
So that means he'll retire and then come back and then play one more season, be really bad, and then retire.
Sure, that's one way of looking at it. Aaron Rodgers, though, I think, is different from Brady because Brady was still playing very high-quality football.
Rodgers
has not been.
I mean, this is coming off previously two MVP seasons.
Two MVP seasons, but this felt like just regression was age-related.
Huge regression.
And it wasn't a terrible season for him, personally.
No, but as one of the supposedly elite QBs, you got to be playing better than that.
You got to be playing better
Speaking of very bad playing elite QBs, it's the anniversary of the Russell Wilson trade.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. Who won that trade?
Who do you think won? Seattle, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, it feels very obvious.
You're welcome, Denver.
Of course, Denver could just shock everyone this season and go out and win the Super Bowl, and then we might be saying something different.
Doubt.
I don't think that's going to happen. Where do you think both of these teams go from here now, 1 year after the trade, after we've seen Seattle have a very impressive season where they overexceeded expectations, and the Broncos having a very underwhelming season, to say the least?
I think the Broncos are going to struggle for a little while, but I do think they're eventually going to start figuring it out. I think Seattle's looking really good right now. And I know that's some bias because, I live here. But I do think they're looking really good. Our rookie class last year was really good. They're only going to get better. We have We have 2 first-round picks. And
2 seconds as well.
2 seconds. And I do think these 2 years are going to be two ones to build on for the next decade to come.
Yeah. Also the question of how long Pete Carroll stays in Seattle. He's, of course, really getting up there in age. Obviously, retirement could be a thing that happens at the end of his current contract, which I believe is up in 2 seasons, I believe.
I believe you're correct.
Yeah. Let's talk about the World Baseball Classic. Charlie, it's been really fun, actually, to watch these games. The environment in these games is like nothing I have seen in Major League Baseball.
Yeah, what's your favorite moment so far?
I loved seeing Ohtani hit that absolute shot.
I think my favorite moment so far is when Korea scored 22 on China.
That was insane. So yeah, let's talk about a couple of these regions, because Region A and Region B have both finished up play. In Region A, it's going to be Cuba and Italy advancing over the Netherlands, Panama, and Chinese Taipei. And the Chinese Taipei finishing last in that group. That means we'll have to re-qualify for the 2026 World Baseball Classic. Will not get an automatic bid. However, it's interesting because all of these teams finished 2-2. Cuba and Italy just won on a tiebreaker. So it's kind of surprising, though, Charlie, that Italy managed to advance.
Yeah, it is. I think the other surprise, though, is Group B. China not winning a single game, losing to the Czech Republic.
I mean, the Czech Republic is a fairly inspiring story.
They are, absolutely.
It's just an amazing team. Japan going 4-0 in that region, advancing with Australia. Korea did not advance, Charlie.
And that's concerning for them.
That's very concerning for them. Shocking, frankly. We'll see the Czech Republic back in the 2026 tournament. Also, another cool story from Japan, Charlie. I believe it was Roki Sasaki, I believe, for them, a pitcher who got to start a game on the 12-year anniversary of when his father and grandfather died in the tsunami.
What a moment.
To represent his country on that anniversary. Obviously, a terrible day for him. Now, in Pool C, let's be very clear, we are taping this right after Great Britain beat Colombia. Canada and the USA are playing Monday night. That's after when we taped this. But currently, Canada leads the group at 1-0. Colombia's 1-1. So is Mexico and the U.S., who had a shocking loss to Mexico. Great Britain is 1-2. What are your thoughts on this group? And is it possible that the U.S. might just not advance?
They could. We'll see. That Canada-Mexico, the U.S.-Canada game is going to be a huge one on Monday.
It'll be a huge one Monday, and then of course Wednesday you've got the U.S. and Colombia. Got the potential for like a 3-way tie at 3-1 atop Pool C, and on tiebreakers it's going to be a trouble for the U.S. just because of how badly they got crushed by Mexico.
And in Pool D?
Pool D, you've got Venezuela, who's 2-0. Is that somewhat surprising to you?
It is.
They managed to beat the Dominican Republic and Sandy Alcantara.
That's surprising. And actually, if it were to finish today, the Dominican Republic would not advance.
We also got Israel, shockingly, at 1-0. Nicaragua's 0-3. It's looking a lot like Charlie. We've got to have a game between the Dominican Republic and Puerto Rico.
For who advances?
For who gets the final spot in that group Wednesday night. That'll be a fun one. It looks like Puerto Rico up early over Israel as we are taping this. Let's see. Kevin Durant, Charlie.
Is out.
Yeah. Talk about it.
Well, he slipped in pre-warm-ups and injured his ankle, I believe.
Yeah, his ankle.
As well as none of these trades have panned out because Doncic is hurt as well as Kyrie Irving being questionable, I believe.
Yeah. So
how does this affect the Suns and as well as the Mavericks?
The Mavericks. Suns are still the favorites to win the championship. They don't have to be necessarily a top seed in the West. I'd say really just keep that home court advantage in the first round. Yeah. That's so. I still would consider the Suns to be my title favorites. Talk about another couple of very quick stories as we are quickly going well over time. Talk about the NWSL expansion. Well, Utah, Charlie's getting a new team, the Utah Royals, so they'll begin play next year. And it's also looking like they're going to add teams in Boston and San Francisco.
More expansion, as well as Trevor Bauer has signed to Japan due to the fact that no MLB teams wanted to sign him. This follows a suspension for sexual assault.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a shocking downturn in his career, obviously for off-the-field reasons, and totally the right thing for the MLB to just shun him, at least in my opinion. What about you, Charlie?
I agree.
Yeah, we are definitely out of time now, so make sure that you subscribe. We've got episodes coming out every single Tuesday, available anywhere that you listen to podcasts. Check out our website, cctalks.net, to learn everything that you need to know about the show, and call us with questions, 360-389-2630. Again, that's 360-389-2630. You can also ask questions on our website, or tag us on Twitter, CC Talks Podcast. Make sure to give us a follow there as well. For our producer Morris, our production designer Zach, and our proof editor Drake, I'm Colin.
And I'm Charlie.
Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week.